where 2 points meet. Very cool.
Maybe we should Google it. Okay, so we're talking about communism. Everyone knows communism was the big enemy that they used back in the 50s and 60s and 70s to convince the dumb Americans, oh, we need to go to war here, we need you to buy this, we need to this and that. It's the same thing with terrorism now. Like they're saying, Mr. Dodd began to do an investigation into the tax-free foundations. Okay, so there's all kinds of these foundations that are like supporting democratic groups in Iran or democratic groups in Iraq, and they're saying to the American liberals, give us your money so that we can go promote democracy in these other countries. But then, if you trace the money to where these liberals, they give their money to these tax-free foundations. The tax-free foundations turn the money over to the CIA, which goes in and makes Al-Qaeda and makes terrorism and then gets people to attack America. And then you get the story of the planes flying into the towers, and you get the story of the Americans being shot at and the trucks blowing up on the roadsides in Iraq.
You don't get the part of us helping train.
No, but then if you try to go further and say, where are these weapons coming from? Where do these people get trained who are doing these things? An iron political curtain slams down every time. And if you think it was strong back this time, it is bulletproof now. It's more than iron. It's some kind of alien material that we don't even know of. Okay. You can't believe anything you want. You can believe anything you want about communism, except that it is a conspiracy run by men from the respectable world. People will often say to an active anti-communist, I can understand your concern with communism, but the idea that a communist conspiracy is making great roads in the United States is absurd. The American people are anti-communist. They're not about to buy communism. It's understandable to be concerned about communism in Africa or Asia or South America, but with their tremendous poverty, ignorance, and disease. But to be concerned about communism in the United States, where the vast majority of people have no sympathy with it whatsoever, is a misspent concern. Yeah, this was written a long time ago. I mean, socialism is communism for all educated people. There's no difference in those two things.
It's just a different, it's just a fancy term.
It's just different terms for equality.
Yeah.
It's forced equality. That's what it amounts to. The government forces equality on the people. You don't know how to support yourself. You don't know what's equal. You don't know what's right. We're the government. We're going to impose equality on you. That's what socialism is. That's what communism is. It's a scary thought, but it's exactly what's happening to the world, to the Western world in general.
This is like the scariest thing ever, you know, like that right there.
It is the negative utopia. That's what it is. Okay, on the face of it, that is a very logical and plausible argument. The American people are indeed anti-communist. Suppose you were to lay this book down right now, pick up a clipboard, and head for the nearest shopping center to conduct a survey on Americans' attitudes about communism. Sir, you would say to the first prospect you encounter, we would like to know if you are for or against communism. Most people would think you were putting them on. If we stick to our survey, we would find that 99% of people are anti-communist. We probably would be hard put to find anybody who would take an affirmative stand for communism. So on the surface, it appears that charges made against anti-communists concerned with the internal threat of communism are valid. The American people are not pro-communist. But before our imaginary interviewee walks away in disgust with what he believes is a hokey survey, you add, Sir, before you leave, there are a couple other questions I would like to ask. You won't find these quite so insulting or ludicrous. Your next question is, what is communism? Will you define it, please? Immediately, a whole new situation has developed. Rather than the near unanimity previously found, we now have an incredible diversity of ideas. There are a multitude of opinions of what communism is. Some will say, oh yes, communism. Well, that's a tyrannical brand of socialism. Others will maintain that communism, as it was originally intended by Karl Marx, was a good idea, but it has never been practiced, and the Russians have loused it up. A more erudite type might proclaim communism is simply a rebirth of Russian imperialism. If perchance one of the men you asked to define communism happened to be a political science professor from the local college, he might well reply, "You can't ask what is communism. That is a totally simplistic question about an extremely complex situation. Communism today, quite unlike the view held by the other right-wing extremists in America, is not an international monolithic movement. Rather, it is a polycentric, fragmented nationalistic movement deriving its character through the charismas of its various national leaders. Well, of course, there's the welding of Hegelian dialectics with Feuerbachian materialism held in common by the communist parties generally. It is a monumental oversimplification to ask, what is communism? Instead, you should ask, what is the communism of Mao Zedong? What is the communism of the late Ho Chi Minh, or Fidel Castro, or Marshal Tito? If you think we are being facetious here, you haven't talked to a political science professor lately. For the above is the prevailing view on our campuses, not to mention in our State Department." Okay. Do you see what he was just saying there? It's just the public had been taught so much that communism is evil. Communism is evil. To where you could ask anybody, "Are you pro-communism?"
They might not even know what it is. They just know that communism is bad.
Well, when he goes into it, he says, if you try to ask anybody what communism is, everybody will explain something different.
Yeah.
Because it is a very, very complex. Because you're getting into what is the perfect government, or what is real equality. It's the deepest philosophical question. What is communism? What is capitalism? What is democracy?
Yeah.
You can't really put it in a nutshell. You can just get giant groups of people to demonize one or demonize the other.
Yeah.
But I mean, communism and socialism, that's what America and the entire West has become completely tyrannically socialist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're forcing equality on us. I mean, you've got these. I mean, you can listen to the internet. The videos everywhere. Crazy, out of control freaks forcing equality on everybody.
Yeah. It's funny. You're like, yeah, we're so freedom, but it's like, how free are we really? Obviously,
Okay. So whether you agree or disagree with any of these definitions, or may as well be the case you have one of your own, one thing is undeniable. No appreciable segment of the anti-communist American public can agree on just what it is they are against. Isn't that frightening? Here we have something that almost everybody agrees is bad, but we cannot agree on just what it is we are against. How would this work in a football game, for example? Can you imagine how effective the defense of a football team would be if the front four could not agree with the linebackers, who could not agree with the cornerbacks, who could not agree with the safety men, who could not agree with the assistant coaches, who could not agree with the head coach as to what kind of defense they should put up against the offense being presented? The obvious result would be chaos. You can take a Sandlot team and successfully put them against the Green Bay Packers if the Packers couldn't agree on what it is they are opposing. That is the academic. The first principle in any encounter, whether it be football or war, hot or cold, is know your enemy. The American people do not know their enemy. Consequently, it is not strange at all that for 3 decades we have been watching one country of the world after another fall behind the communist curtain. In keeping with the fact that almost everybody seems to have his own definition of communism, we are going to give you ours, and then we will attempt to prove to you that it is the only valid one. Communism, an international conspiratorial drive for power on the part of men in high places willing to use any means to bring about their desired aim, global conquest.
This is where Rage Against the Machine got their song from. It's called "Know Your Enemy," and the song is just about that,
And I'm guarantee you those guys read this book.
Yeah, and that's insane because I kind of feel like that he probably read this book right here where we are, years ago, and then came up with that amazing song.